Today's Our Take guests are sharing their perspective on the controversial and provocative documentary Dark Girls, a film where Black women candidly share their struggles with self-esteem, beauty, and the color of their skin. Here's a clip.
I used to wish that I can wake up one day lighter or wash my face and think that it will change. I thought it was dirt and I tried to clean it off, but it wouldn't come off.
Here comes Blackie. Here comes Tar Baby. I remember one in particular, they used to say, "You stayed in the oven too long." And that was really hurtful.
Joining the conversation are Mia Johnson with me in New York and her mother, Renee Harriston-Johnson, who joins us via Skype from Rhode Island. Mia, I'm sure you've been listening to the conversation. In hearing some of these ladies and children in this film talk about their memories in terms of how they were perceived by others based on the color of their skin. Does any of that remind you of things that you heard as a child?
See, for me, it's a very different experience. And I was always raised to believe I was beautiful from day one. My mother instilled that in me, my father instilled that in me, and so did all of the fabulous women that were around me. So it's heartbreaking to hear that is how someone can view themselves, and to want to sit in a bathtub full of bleach, to bleach your skin, to change how you look. I personally think my complexion is beautiful. My mom says it all the time. She's like, I sit in the sun to try to get your complexion. So it's something that I personally can't relate to, and find it even hard to hear that someone would want to change themselves so much, and that they feel that they are so inadequate because this is the color of their skin. I can't even.
You can't relate in that regard
at all.
And Renee, it sounds like you clearly went to great lengths to make sure that your daughter felt confident about herself on a number of different levels, including the issue of skin. Did you do that intentionally because you recognize, obviously, the world that we live in?
Absolutely not. I grew up in a Black neighborhood. My best friend was dark skinned, and we were very proud of who we were. I mean, they called us names. My name, they used to call me white folks. They called her blue. And we used to think, that's their issue. You know, we were great. We just thought so much of ourselves. So it was so easy to teach my daughter to think so much of herself, because we just knew we were good. And, you know, growing up in Boston, racism was horrible. It was just, you know, the whites, the blacks, it was just, you know, you had to make a choice and decide what you thought of yourself. You couldn't go by what everyone else said. You know, you didn't want anyone to call you stupid, but it didn't matter what they called you about your looks, because you knew what you looked like. I wanted to be smart. I wanted to be well-spoken. What I looked like was my decision, not theirs.
And Tanya, that sounds like what you're hoping this conversation really becomes about, less about the color of the skin, but really what's going on inside.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm, you know, again, it is a relevant conversation. Obviously, we're looking at small children in 2013 who still feel this way, who are still experiencing this type of pain. And instead, we should be doing things like making sure that our kids know that it's a great thing to be smart and to be articulate and to walk with your head up and not be so focused on this covering of ourselves.
But it also comes from the home. It comes from the school, from education. It comes from our films. It comes from our fashion magazines. It comes from our television news, the faces that we're seeing that are reporting the news. What we need to feel is that this isn't, as Dr. Yaba had said in the earlier segment, this isn't about black versus white, brown versus black, brown versus white, yellow versus, it isn't a versus. Right. It's a, we are all that we are, and when you go to a store, you choose your red dress or your yellow dress or your brown dress. It doesn't matter. They're all wonderful colors.
And you talk about the impact of images, and I think for most of us, we can certainly remember when the model Iman hit the runways, and what that was to the fashion world, that you could have this tall, beautiful, dark African goddess, right, be the apple of major designers' eyes. There's some other other ladies I want to bring our attention to. Grace Jones, Alex Weck,
Amazing.
Naomi Campbell, Viola Davis,
Yeah.
all beautiful, gorgeous women. But here's the thing that I find interesting is when we are talking about the beauty of dark women, I often hear, what a beautiful black girl you are.
Yeah.
What a beautiful black woman you are. Yet, when I hear the compliment being paid to someone who is of fair complexion, oh, you are a gorgeous woman. What a cute little girl you are. Doesn't that echo true for you?
Yes, I would definitely say that part. I can just say with my background, I went to predominantly white schools my entire life, from kindergarten all the way straight through college, predominantly white schools. But what it was never, my skin color never held me back in those situations. I became the token. I was the one on the catalogs, like, look, we do have black people at our school, swear,
Sure.
I promise. But what that did for me, it made me value my color even more. You know, yes, I was everyone's first black friend, and yes, I was the one who had the braids, and yes, everyone tried to touch my hair. It happened. It does. It happens. But on the same hand, it didn't do to me what it did, what it seems like in this documentary. It didn't make me feel inferior. It rather made me feel superior, to be honest.
And Renee, I'm curious as to whether or not race played a role in even just the choosing of Mia's father. She told us a story about how you used to say that you wish you could tan long enough so you could get dark like Mia. Did that make you more attracted to her dad?
When I said I wanted to tan, being brown is beautiful, you know. So, when I tan, I think I look good. So when I married Mia's dad, he was fine.
Right on.
He was fine on a number of levels, right?
Fine. So
Thanks, Ma.
I mean, you know, my colors, you know, my family, I have sisters lighter than me, sisters darker than me.
Yep.
You know, like I said, my best friend was dark, and there's so many of my friends who are, you know, dark divas. You know, they're not dark girls, they're dark divas. So the problem for me wasn't with Black Americans, it was with white folks. Them accept me, hire me because I'm smart, hire me because I can do this job. You know, I remember thinking, when, you know, the older black women thought because I was light-skinned, I was special, I would think, God, I wish this white guy thought that so I could get this job. You know, to me, it wasn't something that was personal that was happening to me. Again, it was their issue, and I had to work my way around their issue, you know?
And Yaba, Dr. Yaba, do we still have you on the line?
Yes.
Okay. I like the point that Renee brought up, which is the fact that when it comes to getting a job, right? At the end of the day, black is black, whether you're light or dark or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about how this colorism that we are all dealing with within the community, how does that then translate outside the community who are looking at us as all just black?
They are, but there are also different types of black in the sense of, if we understand white supremacy to construct a spectrum of sorts, with white at the top and black at the bottom, shades in between are valued according to their proximity to either white at the top or black at the bottom. And so it's about which black becomes more accessible, which black becomes more marketable, which black makes us more comfortable. And it's interesting, and just in terms of current events, you know, I have a colleague who makes a point, Dr. Brittany Cooper, about the ways in which the media is responding to the young woman, Rachel Jantel, who's testifying in the Trayvon Martin case. You know,
you bring up an excellent point. You're talking about Rachel Jantel, witness number 8, considered the prosecution's key witness in the George Zimmerman trial. And I'm glad you brought up that point, because in looking at Rachel Jantel, it certainly sparked a conversation internally. The conversation, you know, she's dark-skinned, she's heavy-set. There's a class issue that's also associated with the color of the skin as well.
Absolutely. And so that's that spectrum, right? Who do we associate? What side of the spectrum do we associate you with based upon the complexion of your skin? So the darker you are, the more likely you are to be devalued, right?
Right.
The lighter you are, the more likely anything that we assign to whiteness, you'll get more of that than someone who's of a darker skin. So it makes sense then that if we look at news stations, if we look at other movies and videos, like which woman is cast as the beautiful love interest, or if we want to have a black woman play, I don't know, Nina Simone, we cast a lighter one.
Right, you're talking about the casting of Zoe Saldana, and you bring up a really great point again. I mean, there was a lot of people when it came to the group Destiny's Child who felt as though the success that Beyonce saw versus the success that, say, Kelly Rowland saw was tied to their complexions.
Could be. Could be. You know,
Oh, I'm hearing,
You know, I have a point.
And then I want to jump in.
I have a point I'd like to make on this. I
ahead.
think that the times have changed. Absolutely, when we talk about this classism versus colorism, certainly the two were tied way back when in history, and we've seen an evolution through time. But now we've got the President of the United States who's black. I think that's pretty much says it all right there. Don't you think? I mean, that's pretty much in terms of class, pretty much the highest class you could get and the highest power, you know, that you could be. And he's a black man. So
a black man with a white mother.
right.
Right.
And
But again,
Someone said amen.
but
that's part of the
we're talking
argument.
about color. We're talking about
and here's,
spectrum of
I
color.
just
Go
wanted
ahead,
to
Tanya.
get back to what Mia said. Is that I love what she said. Is that, you know what, she used it to her advantage to be the only one. And when I think about that, that's really what happened to me too. Is that you know, okay, so if I'm not going to be the prettiest, I am going to be the smartest. I am going to be articulate. I am going to stand out, and I'm going to make sure that people know that I am qualified to be here and to do these things. And so that's what it did for me. And so, yes, you know, there were some painful things, but you know what? Some good stuff came out of that too.
All right. Well, ladies, this is a conversation that could seriously, obviously, could continue. So clearly, Dark Girls certainly made an impact in that regard because we're definitely talking about it. Dr. Yaba Blay, thank you for joining us via Skype, as well as Renee Harriston-Johnson and your daughter Mia and Tanya O'Neill. And thank you, Rupa Mikkilineni, whose last name I love saying, Mikkilineni. Thank you for joining me as guest host. Ladies, I think we all make a very beautiful array of shades of brown and black. I am watching, or rather, I am Christina Brown, and you are watching Our Take.